Well, let's talk about some of these issues with Nabila Ramdani. She's a journalist and an expert on the Middle East, and I'm delighted to say she's with us now. Nabila, it's about 2 weeks ago, I think, that we were under the impression that Bani Walid would fall, that Sirte would fall, and that the fighting would probably all be over by now. But why hasn't it happened that way?
Well, absolutely. It's very striking and noticeable how easily, in fact, Tripoli was captured by the rebel forces. And in comparison, the cities of both Sirte, which is where the Gaddafi was born, and Bani Walid, which benefited from the largesse of the regime for decades, are resisting to the rebel forces. I think the visit by President Sarkozy and Prime Minister David Cameron would have infuriated Gaddafi and his loyalists particularly. We've heard messages soon after by his spokesman Musa Ibrahim, who said that these two countries were were about to colonize Libya and were about to plunder the country's assets. So I think that's a message that would have appealed to the hardcore loyalists as well.
Just explain this to us, though. It must be apparent to just about everybody in Libya that Colonel Gaddafi is not going to win this war. So why are the people you refer to as hardcore loyalists remaining so loyal to him? Why don't they, frankly, give up?
Well, there are fears of reprisals for a start, but also I think the message is appealing. Gaddafi's whole classical lines, if I may put it that way, are of course about anti-imperialism, anti-colonization, anti-West. And that's precisely the visit of those two Western powers, the representatives of two Western powers, are very much perceived by some Libyans as an opportunity to make the military adventure worthwhile. And of course, rebuilding Libya is also about making business opportunities.
The National Transitional Council has made quite a point of talking about reconciliation, about saying that those who had fought for Colonel Gaddafi would be treated with fairness. Is that message getting through to Gaddafi loyalists at all, do you think?
No, I don't believe so, precisely because the National Transitional Council has been sending mixed messages. It has, of course, appealed to reconciliation and peace, but on the other hand, we've also heard the defense minister within the NTC saying that if he knew where Gaddafi was, he would kill him himself. So that's not, exactly how justice should be pursued. We've also heard how the National Transitional Council was very supportive of the appeal by two Libyan businessmen to capture Gaddafi either live or dead, effectively putting a bounty on his head. So again, these values are not representative of due process and indeed a belief in justice. So that's why his loyalists are very skeptical about, of course, being safe and, being spared.
And at the same time, the United Nations has given the NTC Libya's seat and has also freed up assets. There are huge sums of money coming Libya's way now. How confident are you that the reconstruction programme is in place?
I think first and foremost, you have to create an environment that will allow the reconstruction progress, and that has to do with a restoration of stability and indeed law and order. Now that's going to prove extremely hard to achieve, given that you have a very young population, very angry. Gaddafi is still on the run. Libya is probably the most population is probably the most heavily armed in the world at the moment. So the environment for the reconstruction of Libya is not there. Also, countries which are holding Gaddafi's assets are very skeptical to release all of them. We've heard Japan has only released a few millions as opposed to the billions that it has. We also heard from members of the NTC about corruption within the NTC itself to do with Gaddafi's assets, which have already been released, which have been disappeared effectively. So the context for a peaceful reconstruction of Libya is not quite there, I'm afraid.
Nabila Ramdani, always fascinating, always interesting. Appreciate your time. Thank you.